Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 255 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. My name is David Howe.
My name is Patrick Nisley.
My name is Jordan Willis.
Oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by a very special guest on today's episode. We are joined by the lovely and talented, you know him from GameXplain, Joey Ferris is on the show, ladies.
You guys think I'm talented? Stop it.
How you doing, Joey?
Doing great. I'm very excited for this episode. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Of course. We have you on today, Joey, because we are going to be talking all about handhelds. In the year of our Lord 2024, we kind of find ourselves in a bit of a weird handheld renaissance. It's a lot different than the way handhelds have been seen in the past, but I do think that there's a bright future for handhelds, and I think Nintendo might be at the nexus point for a lot of that. So we're going to be talking all about that and where we think it might be going. But then before we get into that for the main topic, we have a lot of news that we're going to be covering as well. Let's see. There was an Indie World. We got to talk about that. That was actually a pretty good presentation. There have been some more layoffs, sadly. Golden Axe is getting a TV show for some reason. And the Game Boy has turned 35. It's actually the Game Boy's birthday today, the day we're recording this, April 21st. But before we get into all that, how are we all doing? Do we have a good week? How are our weeks?
I had a great week because Keanu Reeves is Shadow, and I can't be happier.
Have you just been sitting on that news, just giddy the entire time?
Yes, my God. I didn't think it was gonna happen. I really didn't at that point, but then all of a sudden it happened. So it's been a great week.
Very good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I didn't do much. I've been working on my game on Monochrome Heights this past week on updating the demo. I'm gonna push out an update on that soon, maybe by the time this comes out. But honestly, I don't think I did a lot outside of the house this week, but it's been a fine week.
Very good. What about you, Jordan?
Pretty good. The show I work on wrapped and we had a nice party. David, thanks for coming with me, being my +1 and doing karaoke.
Right. That's right. I did karaoke. I crashed your rap party.
I love how, too, when you went up to the karaoke, before he started the song, he goes, "Hey, everybody, I'm Jordan's friend," and then went into his song.
Yeah. I wanted everyone to know. I didn't want people to think that I just showed up to sing karaoke at this rap party, which I guess I kind of did.
I don't think it would have mattered because the rest of the night people were coming up and being like, "Oh, I loved your karaoke. I loved your karaoke." that happened at least 3 to 5 times. I kind of lost count, but yeah.
I'm trying to get a gig on the CW. That's what I'm trying to do.
Dude.
We'll
I'm here with Hollywood types. It's so weird, right?
Yeah.
I found out when you followed me for the first time, I'm like, this Castlevania dude is following me. That's legit. I've only seen season 1, I'm sorry to say, but I promise I'll continue.
Oh, it only gets better from there. Yeah, it was a good week for IRL hangs. Also hung out with Emma yesterday as well, who fans of the podcast will know is a regular. So yeah, it's been a fun time. This weekend was filled with a lot of like birthdays and hangs and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Last week we did an episode on the Mario RPG games, the Paper Mario, Mario and Luigi, Mario RPG franchises, walking through that whole mess. And we got some nice discussion in our Discord. In particular, I want to shout out Swampy Southpaw, the huge and cool Uncle Vince for contributing to the discussion over there, in particular kind of talking about whether Paper Mario is going to return to its roots. I think there's a real big question out there about that, and people got opinions about what all these remakes mean versus, how Paper Mario has been trending. So that was a good discussion. Also kind of spun off into a little bit of a discussion about Sticker Star in particular. So thanks to all those folks. If you too want to be shouted out, then drop a comment somewhere online, join our Discord, join the podcast channel over there and say something. And we always appreciate hearing from folks. And we also appreciate all of our patrons over on Patreon. So thank you for your support, folks. And then if you're not watching the podcast and you're just listening, why don't you head over to YouTube and hit the like button? And if you're not subscribed by this point, definitely hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate that. And with that, we'll get on to the news and rumors for the week. So first up, there was a big Indie World presentation on April 17th, I think it was. What do we think about this? Before we get into maybe any specific games, just the presentation overall, how did we feel about this indie world?
I didn't watch it. I'm sorry to say. I know I'm a bad GameXplain employee, but when something's at 7 a.m., I'm asleep. Like, real. I'm lucky in that my child sleeps until like 8:30 because he goes to bed later. So I'm sleeping at that point. But I did like some games from it, but that's not what we're talking about yet. So
yeah. I think overall, to me, it felt pretty good. Obviously, it sucks that everybody's just like, there's no Silksong, and that's what everybody talks about with these things, because there are actually some really good, cool games shown. No farming sims in this indie world, which, that's fine. There's a farming sim humble bundle right now, so you get your fill of that if that's what you're looking for. But I thought it was actually a pretty good, diverse, good-looking group of games. There's definitely a lot in here that I'm really interested in.
Jordan, did you have any big picture thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, overall, pretty good. It kind of does fill in a little bit of the gaps that we're getting from the Switch releases this year that we don't necessarily know what's coming out. So it'll be like nice stop gaps. And a couple of the games look really nice to me. I am one of those, I wish I want Silksong, but also, as I was telling Patrick before we recorded, there are too many games out. And if Silksong comes out next year, I will be perfectly happy to play it next year. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, no new games could come out this year, and I would be okay with that. There are so many games in my backlog, dude.
Well, too bad.
I think Silksong, I feel like it's never going to be in an indie world. You're not going to see that in an indie world. It's going to be in a mainline direct, if that. It's the game at this point is just way too big to be in something as, like, I don't want to say small as an indie world, because that inherently, I feel like that devalues the games shown off in there, and I don't want to do that. But I also know indie worlds tend to focus only on really new announcements. So we don't really see returning games in there from my recollection.
Now that's an interesting point, because this is an interesting one, because in this presentation we got this. I think this is the third time that Little Kitty Big City has shown up in an indie world or a Nintendo presentation.
Interesting.
Yes.
I haven't even heard of that game before.
There are like one or two other ones in this presentation that also have been in other indie worlds. So like that used to be true, but the last one or two indie worlds have reshown things. And
interesting.
I think just to fuel the fire to anybody that wants to yell Silksong at these things. Basically, I'm just pointing this out for them.
There were definitely some good looking ones in here. I thought, Little Kitty Big City looks really fun. It looks very Untitled Goose Game, I thought Yars Rising was actually really interesting, as, it's like a Yars Revenge prequel, I guess, but it's a Metroidvania made by Way Forward. So I was like, all right, this is cool.
With Atari, nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, it's Yars Revenge is an Atari game, right? So so that was really interesting to see. Anton Blast got like a release date. It's later in the year. It's going to be November, if you're looking for more Pizza Tower likes, which in itself is a Wario Land 4 like, right? So it is just really interesting to see how similar those two games are, but they both look incredible. And then, there are a couple other really good looking ones as well. One of them I'm going to talk about later in the show, but Stitch, I actually picked up and I'm really enjoying that. And there's a bunch of really cool. I kind of don't want to go through all of these necessarily, but there were some really good looking ones.
The one thing we got to talk about is Steam World Heist 2. Like straight up. I don't know if any of you have played the Steam World games, but they are the best. They are so good, regardless of what genre they're in. Like, they're all really good. I say that although I have not played Steam World Quest or Steam World Build, but I've played Steam World Heist, not really into like turn-based strategy games, but I dug the hell out of that game. And right now there's really, really insane sale going on for that franchise on the eShop. I think even as you listen to this, it's still going on. You can get SteamWorld 1 and 2 for like $4.
Nice.
Like both of them together. Maybe less. Like, if you haven't gotten into the SteamWorld franchise, do it now. It's worth it. Yeah.
Jordan, did any of these stick out to you?
Yeah, there's a couple. Europa just looks gorgeous. The movement really is appealing to me. It looks like a lot of far moving, gliding, sliding mechanics. And that's just a recipe for me to just like want to just run around in this world. Plus the graphics look incredible. I also really liked that game, Skim. Is that how you call it? Where it's like you play in the shadows.
Oh,
right.
yes,
You play
I
like
saw
a
that.
shadow jumping from shadow to shadow or whatever. Yeah, that was cool.
That concept's really cool to me, and it's like definitely enough to get me to try it out. And then Valley Peaks also looked really fun to me. Again, like a first person kind of hiking game, but you can grapple up. How do you climbing game? Climbing, that's the word. Looks like a first person climbing game, and looked like a lot of fun. And I like the aesthetic as well. It's like very cutesy, very cozy. So those are the games that really look good to me. But
we're kind of in a golden age of first person climbing indie games right now. There's like a couple coming out, like Lawrence Lure looks really good. We've talked about that on the show before. This one looks like it has similar vibes. Yeah, it's just really great stuff right now.
We'll move on, and we are kind of moving on. We're talking about Silksong because this Indie World happened, and obviously there were a lot of people thinking that we would see Silksong at this, partly because of some of the recent things we've talked about with store pages popping up and ratings. And the game has, in addition, been rated in Australia. That's sort of the most recent Silksong news, which is significant, right? Because as these ratings come out, that's usually an indication the game is done, or mostly done, or enough done that they can rate it. I know we would just make some jokes about it never coming out, but with these ratings coming in from different regions, shadow drop, or is this going to be like an E3 type, June thing?
Or summer fan.
Yeah,
festival.
whatever.
I don't know what
Whatever
IGN's
the thing
is called. I forget what they're calling their thing, but I don't know. Maybe. I mean, that would honestly, if IGN's doing their thing and they've got like a day of presentations, say this June, and one of the first things they have on their presentation is a shadow drop of Silksong, I mean, that would be pretty big for IGN. You know what I mean? To get like that, you know what I mean? To be able to like tie
Keighley,
into that for whatever.
Get it?
Yeah. Well, no. Jeff Keighley has shot his shot with Silksong and he missed. All right. Like this is IGN's battle to lose now. I don't know what I'm fucking talking about. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see it kind of come out this summer. And I think some sort of announcement or event or wherever it shows up, that would be really cool. Just because there's a lot of smoke right now. We saw the same thing with Penny's Big Breakaway, with like there's tons of like movement around it, and then shadow dropped in a Nintendo Direct, right?
So it'd be insane. I feel like this would be like a very insane shadow drop because it's been anticipated for a long, long, long time. It'd be kind of like if they shadow dropped Metroid Prime 4. Yeah, that's how I feel. And I kind of feel like in that sense they wouldn't just shadow drop it, but they would give it a trailer and then say, bam, it's out next month or like next 2 weeks. Something like that.
Short amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, it does, it's likely not going to have a physical version. So it's like, it's not like they have to get copies out to retailers or anything like that. Right?
Limited run games is like, come on, give it to us.
Yeah.
You say it's
We'll
likely not to. It likely is, but not necessarily, like you said, at launch, or like I don't think that holds them back from doing a digital only launch or whatever.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, this would be one that they want people to double dip on. Like a limited edition later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out in the next few months because I think it's imminent. So some announcement with all this, but we'll see. Maybe not. We'll move on to Golden Axe, the franchise everybody wants to talk about right now. Golden Axe is apparently getting a TV adaptation, and it's going to be an animated comedy. And I think, is this the same group of people that are doing the Among Us TV adaptation, David? I'm kind of confused. Or can you know a little bit more about adult animation and that sort of stuff than me? Can you?
I mean, that's a good question. Yeah, so it looks like this is being done by Titmouse, and Titmouse did work on Lower Decks, and it looks like the creator of Lower Decks is the person who's going to be show running this. But Titmouse is also just like a very large studio that does all sorts of projects. The similar or same studio that is doing the Among Us show. I mean, this sounds kind of cool. It sounds like they want to do sort of a goofy Masters of the Universe style comedy show. It's going to Comedy Central, which is kind of interesting. It's like all animation you hear about nowadays is on like one of the streamers. So something actually going to Comedy Central is kind of refreshing. Actually, hearing about real TV, But
there is a Golden Axe game coming out. We found out.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Sega's rebooting it, right?
Yeah, Sega's rebooting that. And Crazy Taxi. They're just Sega woke up and realized one day, wait, we have more than just Sonic and Yakuza.
Yeah,
crazy.
Exactly. And I mean, this isn't the last of the adaptations coming either, because we know there's like a Space Channel 5 thing coming. There's a Comic Zone show or movie or something that they're also doing. So there's this is definitely a bit of a media renaissance for Sega right now. This is not the franchise that I would have thought to do a show off of, but neither is Comic Zone. So we'll see how this goes.
It's also interesting that it's a comedy. I mean, like, you can make anything funny, in my opinion, and why not? But yeah,
them doing a serious Golden Axe cartoon would probably be really cringe, if I'm honest.
Probably.
I think comedy sounds like the way to go with that.
Is there even a story in those games?
It's been a long time since
I have no fucking idea, dude.
I don't even know when the last Golden Axe game was. I just know about the ones on the Genesis, and that might actually be it. There's only those ones. I could be wrong.
Crazy
well,
stuff.
well, again, we'll find out how funny this is someday, maybe. If there's a lot of that. All right. Well, in sort of our weekly bad news about video game layoffs, I was kind of hoping we were trending the other way, but there's been continued layoffs. In particular, this week of note, Take-Two, the big conglomerate publisher that has a lot of developers under them, are laying off about 5% of their workforce, approximately 600 people, and canceling a bunch of projects. That obviously sucks because it really did feel, or I don't know, I was really just feeling like, how can you keep, aren't we done? Like, hasn't everybody been laid off?
It feels like we ran out of companies that report on this news. And then we get Take-Two, the big, huge, like, money-making company, God forbid the CEO takes a pay cut.
Right, exactly.
It's also like they're going to be releasing GTA 6 next year,
allegedly.
Right? So it's like, well, even if it isn't next year, even if it goes into 2027, like, or wait, what year is it now?
Well, I believed you when you said 2027.
Yeah.
So,
but either way, even if it does get delayed, whatever they spent, they're going to make back. This game is going to be the biggest game of all time. The GTA 5 continues to sell. They're making money hand over fist from microtransactions from that game. So, I mean, GTA itself could keep Take-Two afloat. Right. Not to mention all their other games that they publish and develop. Right. So the fact that they're like, oh, our profits aren't up by the end of this quarter, this year or whatever. It's like, man, it's just like the shareholders are just so impatient and need profits like right away. So appeasing them, is just of the utmost importance for these companies. It's just really sad to see. It's like for a company like this where it's coming in, it's just like, man, not even GTA 6 studio is safe.
No. And then the other one that I wanted to mention this week is not like a household name. It's a UK studio called Quali. I don't really know a whole lot about them, and I think they might be a mobile developer based on what I've read. But the thing that just sucks about this is that they said the thing that nobody says, but does, and that is in the article about it over on Game Developer. The quote is that we are reshaping our business and our team to best capture the significant growth opportunities that currently exist in the sector, including hiring for 20 new roles. So they're laying off people and hiring people, right, to probably pay them less or more junior or whatever, So that's the kind of thing that's just really disappointing.
What it probably is probably to go back to IGN again. IGN just went through a bunch of layoffs in their department, and then those are full-time people that they fired. And then recently on social media, they've been putting out postings for come join us as contract positions, right?
For like 2 weeks for one.
Yeah, exactly.
Ridiculous.
Right. And it's also like, you can kind of, just put, you can hire somebody without any of the liability of having to worry about, benefits or anything. Right. Yeah. So it's like, and if it doesn't work out, you can just let them go for no reason. So it's like, I think that's probably what's going on here. We're going to be seeing a lot more of that. We're seeing it in some at Nintendo right now as well.
That's right.
Well, a little bit of good news to follow that up. That is that the Global Games Fund was announced. This is an initiative that's going to be providing funding to developers, people who are disadvantaged by where they live, is the way it's kind of put by Rami Ismail, who's one of the leaders of this group.
Love Rami.
Former Vlambeer and indie, champion, and also champion of just like developers from around the world. And so this is pretty cool, that they're going to, presumably people in third world countries or other places that just aren't traditionally known for the game industry are going to be, have access to apply, or who knows, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but for this funding and mentorship and that sort of thing. So obviously it would be years off, but hopefully this is a success and leads to, blossoming game development in lots of far-flung places.
That would be very nice.
Yeah. Rami, I know, recently just sold his half of his stake in Vlambeer, so now fully goes back to Jan Willem, who was the other half of Vlambeer back in the day. And so it seems like he's going full speed into this kind of work, and he's been a really great shepherd of like new talent within the indie game scene. So I just hope them all the best.
I had to throw this bit of news in just because I find it really fascinating. Next up, we're going to talk about, speaking of Take-Two, about NBA 2K. There's been a lawsuit that is going to a jury trial this month, actually, about LeBron James's tattoos in the NBA 2K games. So what's really interesting is that this is not the first time this has happened. There's been several lawsuits about it, and I think that's probably why they're actually, at this point, going to have a trial. But just like when I first saw this news, I guess I was not aware of some of the old ones. Like my gut was like, how in the world could you, if it's their tattoos, they're on his body. But then I started like reading about it, and the more I thought about it and all that sort of thing, it's like, okay, I guess there is some weird gray area here.
So what is the case? I'm not familiar.
So
Who's
it's like a
suing who
tattoo artist is suing
Okay.
them, that it's like his design on LeBron, right? And you might say, well,
Right.
that's ridiculous. But then what if you got a tattoo of like Mario? And they put that in the game, right? Like somebody owns the, whatever. This isn't the first time it's happened, and tattoo artists have lost before, but it's just weird, right? Like I don't know, I just find it kind of a fascinating.
I think I remember hearing something about because in The Hangover Part 2, what's his name woke up with a Mike Tyson tattoo on his face, and there was a whole kerfuffle about that also, which is funny because Mike Tyson is also in those movies. So it's like, where do you draw the line?
Yeah,
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm reading here in the thing. It's like whether or not a tattoo artist can copyright art they've given an implied license by having it be on someone else's body. Like, yeah, it's an interesting. I'd be interested to see what the actual outcome of this is.
exactly.
Or is there one?
No, I mean, so like I said, there's been past lawsuits, and I think that they have been thrown out, or there might be more than one, but there was one in particular I read about where a tattoo artist sued, about a player, and I think even LeBron James, and lost. But obviously, the fact that this isn't settling, that they are going to actually have a trial, means that like they, we're going to set some precedent here. We're going to have like a legal ruling on this. That's,
Yeah. It does say Take-Two wins lawsuit in this article that you.
It does say that. That's been updated. So that was like, that just happened. So good call.
Crazy.
Just fascinating that between the time I put this in here and we're recording, that the jury has voted in favor of Take-Two. And
Christ.
there you go.
All the more reason for them to lay off a bunch of their staff.
Yeah. The legal
They
fees.
get all the money from this this small tattoo artist.
I think it's interesting too. It's like in this, he was compensated for LeBron James' tattoo in the feature film Space Jam 2 to the tune of $1,500.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, one, that's ridiculously low for licensing of an entire movie. You're seeing that piece of art. It's the entire movie. That's a ridiculously low number from a movie that probably cost $100 to $150 million to make, give or take, if I had to guess. Just kind of wild. It's like, why the jury would side with the company in this sense, but
juries should never side with corporations, in my humble opinion.
Wouldn't that be a nice world?
Yes.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for pointing out that this is actually over with, and so I think the precedent may be set there. We'll see.
Yeah.
But we'll move on to a couple of our last couple items, which are going to kind of lead us into our main topic today. First up is that, as we discussed previously, emulators are now on iOS. So in the Apple Store, you can get emulators now. And that's apparently really happening, right? Like they're out.
Yeah. There's one in particular called Delta, which is really blowing up on iOS. And it's really interesting to see. I mean, obviously emulators have been on Android for a really long time, but there are hundreds of millions of iPhones out there, and a lot of people are downloading this. I think Delta is number one on the store, or at least was, for free apps the other day. I just feel like this is a really big win for emulation. I think a lot of quote unquote normies are like getting into emulation for the first time. People that are casual gamers that maybe haven't had a handheld console since like the DS, and DS games run great on this, and it makes sense with a vertical device like this to have your screens laid one on top of the other and then have the controls at the bottom. So it's really interesting to see that not only did that rule go through and went through quickly for the App Store on iOS, but also that already people are really taking advantage of it.
I saw that DS button layout and I just can't with it. I can't with it. It's just like, yeah, you got the top two screens here and then the buttons at the bottom. And I'm just like, I need something for those L and R buttons. You can't make me use my thumbs for those. I think they do support controllers though.
Yes.
Even still, it's just like, what's the point at that point? I want to play my DS games, but like, guess I just gotta sell a kidney to buy my DS games.
You know what it is though? It's Pokemon, man. It is just Pokemon. I think the vast majority of people that download these are going to be playing Pokemon games because
That's
Pokemon
true.
games are slow. You can, a touch D-pad isn't going to like hinder you or make you die or anything like that. And like I personally actually, I have an Android phone, but just seeing everybody playing DS games like made me want to get into this myself. I put Heart Gold on my phone the other day. I've been playing a little bit just like here and there. And it's like, I kind of forgot how much of that game you could just use the touchscreen for anyway, so it feels pretty natural, a game like that. So I think that, I don't know, for me, this just kind of shows again, it's like Nintendo really sits on their shit, and the Pokemon company especially really sits on their old games. And if they just like put these things out on mobile, they would sell like fucking gangbusters, man. So I just wonder if there's any takeaways from this for Nintendo, and if it's going to make them want to get back into mobile at all, or if it's going to make them even more steadfast against emulation.
I mean, even still, like, just put them on your current hardware, even if it's not the phones, which I know we're not really talking about. We're talking about the phones, but it's very interesting to see this happen. I just want to know, like if Nintendo's going to try to take legal action with any of this.
Yeah, totally.
The emulator people, whoever made these things, might not be breaking any laws really, but those corpos, they don't care.
Yep.
I feel like Apple allowing this kind of gives them, they knew what they were doing when they let this slide. So I feel like they feel pretty sure this isn't going to get knocked down anytime soon. Or maybe they're testing the waters just to see how hard Nintendo lawyers might go after something like this. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, I think we've talked about this on the pod before, but why isn't there just a bespoke Pokemon app with all the old Pokemon games? If you're not going to throw them on NSO at this point, which we already have up to Game Boy Advance, like, what are y'all doing? They've been up there for so long. Why are we not having these games on Switch hardware? It's just wild to me. I don't know what they're thinking, why they're just holding on to it. I can't even imagine.
Well, I don't know.
Stuff. Yeah.
Like, this is what happens when you just hold on to it. Like,
I know. I mean, shit, though. I mean, do it. Fucking go check him out. Go to that Vim guy. Here he's got a lair.
Well, Pokemon games started on the Game Boy. And like David said up top, the Game Boy today, the day that we're recording this, Sunday, April 21st, it's turned 35 years old. So it's an anniversary. That's actually the Japanese release date. It came out a few months later in the US and in, I don't know when in other regions. Any reflections or thoughts right now on 35 years of the Game Boy?
It was pretty revolutionary for the time. Obviously it wasn't the first handheld ever, and wasn't even like technically the best.
No love for the Atari Lynx
when it was out.
Let's
yeah,
go.
Exactly. No, but it was like, and this is something that I'd like to get into further in the main topic, but it was like, it kind of ushered in a new style of video game, right? Handheld games for so long were kind of their own things next to console games, right? And I think that, Nintendo keeping their stuff cheap, keeping the screen black and white, making it to where the battery life lasts forever. Like, these were all really smart ideas for mass adoption of something like that, right? And yeah, it's really cool. And it's crazy to see a lot of the same sort of philosophies that Nintendo used back then still in use to this day, in terms of the power of the hardware versus the cost efficiency of what it takes to make it and stuff like that. So I fucking love the Game Boy, man.
I see that box behind you. So
yeah, I got some Game Boy stuff back here.
That's so cool. Yeah, I've only had a Game Boy Color, and it was fun. I had a lot of licensed games on it as a child, like Monsters Inc., Shrek's. There was a Shrek fighting game, so that was fun. Oracle of Seasons was my first Zelda game, even though I never beat it on there. I don't know how I managed to get so far as a child, because I couldn't fathom a game where you don't just constantly go right or constantly go just one direction. You're telling me I have to look around for stuff, and I still somehow managed to get the jump button, whatever that item was called. But yeah, fun times with that Game Boy Color. I think I'm not gonna go get it, but yeah.
Yeah, the Game Boy was actually my first console ever. My brother is 9 years older than me, so he got, the Super Nintendo and all that stuff. So for me, though, my parents knew I wanted something, so they got me the Game Boy with Tetris. They thought that was pretty safe, and boy, oh boy, did they just introduce a lifetime of video games to me without knowing it. But also, what will always stick with me with the Game Boy is that box art that it came in, where it's kind of see-through and you got your hands and it's see-through and it's in like a 3D grid world. I mean, some of the sickest box art design, I think, on any console ever. I mean, go get any console box ever. You throw them out. I'm a crazy person. I keep all my console boxes, but all the design is terrible. This is like, it peaked at Game Boy.
It is definitely, I constantly go on eBay and look for just Game Boy box only to see there, and I've been wanting to get one for so long, but I keep not pulling the trigger. Matt Stoner, former host of the show, did a really great episode art, doing an homage to that box art on one of our old Game Boy episodes. So go peep that if you haven't yet.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to the WarioWare. I mean, not WarioWare, Wario Land games. I don't think they came out on the original Game Boy. I could be wrong. But they were like my favorite Game Boy games.
Wario Land 1 and 2, I think, were both on the original Game Boy.
Cool.
Or maybe 2 is Game Boy Color, but I know the original one was black and white.
Yeah, wasn't the first Wario Land called something different? Like
it was Super Mario Land 3. Yeah.
What's the deal with them like just changing the protagonist of like a numbered Mario entry, like Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island?
It was a different time. You could smoke cigarettes inside back then.
Wait, you can't anymore? Oh no.
Depends on where you are.
All right, y'all. Well, that's going to do it then for our news segment. And we are going to take a very short break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking all about handhelds and handheld gaming. All right, we are back. And this week we are talking about Handheld Gaming. It's the Game Boy's 35th anniversary. The Switch is doing numbers. The Steam Deck is on the rise. There's rumors of Microsoft and Sony making new handhelds. The PlayStation Portal exists. And we thought we would talk about the current state of handheld gaming and maybe the future. What's happening? Because it does seem to be, like David said, having a moment. Big picture, it feels that way, right? Like, is there any insights into why or what's going on? Is it the success of the Switch?
It's so weird, right? It feels like handhelds were on the verge of death, like right before the Switch came out. Heck, kind of even during the Switch era a little bit. It's weird, right? Because there's two kinds of handhelds. There's the handhelds that we have now that the Switch made popular. They're essentially big tablets, and they don't fit in your pocket, and they play games that are already available normally on the home consoles, right? So there hasn't been a real like dedicated handheld game, at least produced by like the big AAA studios, in quite a few years. And then you got the old handhelds, which are like the games are made specifically for those sizes. They're designed differently. The camera is a little bit of a closer distance to the character. I was playing Uncharted Golden Abyss, and I definitely noticed that. So yeah, we're in it's like a handheld renaissance, but can you really call it handheld? It's more like maybe a portable renaissance, and we can thank the Switch for that, like 100,000%.
Yeah, I think definitely you're right in that this is once again a case of Nintendo kind of forging a bit of a path forward and a lot of the other companies following suit. You know, I don't know that the Steam Deck, maybe Steam or Valve would have been developing a handheld portable PC before the Switch. I think there were handheld portable PCs before the Switch, but I kind of don't think so. I think that they saw the success of the Switch, saw how much it was blowing up, saw the trends moving in that direction, and then jumped right in. And then, that they weren't the first handheld PC to market, but other people have also followed suit since then, right? Yep. And I think, that's when we're talking about Microsoft then wanting to get in on this as well. They're seeing a lot of people using Windows for PC gaming, and they're like, well, hey, we should probably be putting out some Xbox Series P or whatever the fuck they're gonna call this thing, right? But it's please don't call it the Series P.
No, do it. Come on.
I said it and I was like, oh, I can like hear them saying that right now. Or be a P pip S pip X, whatever.
Just imagine Phil Spencer coming on stage saying, I am proud to announce the Xbox Series P.
Yeah, the Wii and the P, and we got to come up with better names for this shit. But anyway, it just makes a ton of sense, right? And like you brought up earlier, the PlayStation Portal isn't even really a handheld. That is a streaming device, and we'll talk some about there are other streaming handhelds that are also proving to be pretty popular. But it's like that's doing really well. It's like selling a lot, and it's basically a Wii U tablet for the PS5, right? So it's like there's a market for this, there's a hunger for it. And then like you said as well, Joey, it's like we all thought mobile was going to kill handheld gaming, but we're now at a point where it's like people want those experiences. It's like we did the mobile gaming thing for a while, and there's like a certain kind of game that's good with mobile gaming, right. And people want what they used to have, which was handheld gaming. So it's just interesting to see it all coming back and being cyclical in that way.
I think the glow of mobile gaming is kind of starting to wane. And I think also a big part of it was the pandemic really just pushed Switches into more casual players' hands, especially with Animal Crossing. I knew a lot of people who'd never had a Switch or had any interest in getting a Switch, buy a Switch specifically to play Animal Crossing during the pandemic. Then they started playing Mario Kart, and then they started playing Mario Odyssey, and then now they're playing Super Mario Wonder. And so it kind of like reminded people, oh yeah, we have like a lot of better shit than a mobile game can offer. There's not to say mobile games are inherently bad, but it's just like you get more out of a unique gaming device. And I think that like Nintendo was just slightly ahead of the curve, knowing that people might want this type of experience. And now we're far enough from the sales that people are like, oh shit, this is what the market might want on top of mobile gaming. So they're seeing it as a way to like make money and then also make money on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it funny how like the same conference, like there was a press conference in like 2015 where Nintendo said, all right, we're doing what you all asked. We're sucking it up. We're putting our pride aside. We're putting games on mobile. Get hyped. By the way, the NX is a thing. It's coming. You'll know more about it next year. Mm-hmm. And then the NX comes out called the Switch now. And I don't think Nintendo cares about mobile nearly as much anymore. Like at all. Can you think of anything they came out with like in the past few years other than Pikmin Bloom?
Yeah, I mean they did Pikmin Bloom. They also just kind of fumbled a little bit with Mario Run. It was like, I mean, Mario Run was a good game, and I actually quite like Super Mario Brothers Run. But it was like, but you know, it was a $10 game, and they misread the market. They thought that they could push mobile gaming into a one-time purchase with no microtransactions, and like people just don't want that. You know, people want Fire Emblem Heroes. Yeah. They want Mario Kart Tour, even though they're shutting Mario Kart Tour down. You know. But as they like gotcha and they like microtransactions.
Yeah, let's be clear. Mobile gaming is huge. It's the biggest, most profitable like arm of gaming, but it is changed, right? Like a lot. And since it started, and people don't buy games like David just said, right? It's got to be free. And then to monetize it, it has to be stuff like Fire Emblem Heroes or like Monopoly Go or like all the big, that's where all that money is the people like microtransactions. And if you want to make a mobile game as a developer, like, and make money, that's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? It's the big companies that can do it and the specific model. And I think as it's morphed to that also kind of brings back handheld gaming, right? Because like Jordan was saying, the pandemic and the Switch and all that, like, it's like, well, there's a certain thing that works on mobile, like you said, David, or that, you know, is dominating it now, right? At least works in the current oversaturated market or whatever. But I just wanted to be like, it's a lot of money, but it's now just for the big players, right?
Yeah, really, like just the Candy Crushes and the Candy Crushes. I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Monopoly Goat is apparently a game.
Yeah.
I know it's Go, but whatever. I think maybe something that might be interesting to talk about is sort of maybe what I was hinting at before the break, if you guys are cool going down this path. But it's like handheld gaming is back, but in a lot of ways it has died the true death. And by that, I mean, there are no real, like, the way that handhelds are going now is that technology has gotten to a point where you can have console-like experiences handheld, right? Yep. So now it's like what we get in handheld and what I think the future of handheld gaming, at least for bespoke handheld systems, are Switch likes, where it is something that you have mainly on your TV, but the same experience is what you have handheld. And, you know, I know, Joey, you were talking recently about how you've been playing the Vita a lot more lately. And I think the Vita was such an incredible system that really feels modern and, like, to this day, like, I think holds up really well. And I think it had a lot of really cool games, but it just ended up being unsupported. But that was kind of one of the last times that we saw any of these major companies making games specifically for the handheld form factor or for handheld play in general. Do you guys see that coming back at all? Or do you think it really is just like this downgraded port of console or PC games that we're going to be having going forward as, like, you know, the bastions of handheld or whatever?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because we thought handheld gaming was just going to be completely dead, right? But now it's like coming back, granted with an asterisk. But even still, like right now, I think, we are totally going to be in the stage where you're not going to get like a handheld dedicated game, like a game made with being played portably in mind, right? Because like I said earlier, the games on the 3DS and the PS Vita were not like, you know, console games brought over to the portable. They were like made with portable play in mind. You're not. Right. I don't think you're going to see that anymore, or at least for a long time. I know there's a lot of indie studios that are making games that have like that sort of handheld nostalgia to it. There's a game coming out. I forget what it's called, sadly, but it looks a lot like a Link's Awakening spiritual successor with the art style and everything. So yeah, it'll survive in that market for sure. But as it is, it's not gonna be like it used to be. Kit and Krista actually had a really good podcast about this too, and they were largely saying the same thing. It's like they even said at first we were just like, we don't need handheld games and stuff. Like we could just get the same experiences on console as on handheld. And now they're looking back on that statement saying we made a mistake. We need to go back.
I think that's kind of what we're living through, right? Is like, I remember earlier in the Switch life, before every game was on the Switch, there would be a lot of like, oh man, that should get ported to the Switch because it would be great for Switch. And I think that's implying that it would be good in a handheld experience, right? And I think there's a little bit of right now this excitement about being able to play Cyberpunk or Baldur's Gate 3 on a handheld. And I think in a couple years, maybe that won't be there because, well, we did that and it wasn't the best way to play those games, and it and the shininess of it wore off. I also think about, like, you know, the early Switch titles, not that the new ones aren't entirely, but I would be kind of curious y'all's take on this. There's a lot of talk about like the way Super Mario Odyssey is designed, or the way Breath of the Wild is designed, is such that you can play in bite size. You hop on, you do a shrine, or you get a moon, or you and then you stop. And so like that's like a midway almost, right?
Yeah.
Like point.
Yeah.
And
I think,
is that continuing, or is that changed over the Switch's life?
You know what's funny? I feel like Princess Peach Showtime continued that, but I can't think of genuinely any other game like these last few years that have done that. And I'm like, Princess Peach Showtime is fine, but it's not incredible to me. So
yeah, we see that with some Nintendo stuff for sure. I mean, you know, something like WarioWare has always kind of been like that, where it's like, but I mean, that started as a mobile or a handheld franchise, right? So they kind of always kept that in there.
Super Mario Wonder,
Yeah,
completely level based. You can play a level and hop out like easily.
true.
Also, Fire Emblem, all of the Fire Emblem games, really, because you can go in, okay, I'm going to do one battle and then I'm going to dip out.
or do half a battle. That works because it's turn based.
That too. I feel like a lot of Nintendo games like actually do adhere to this formula still. I mean, even arguably Tears of the Kingdom, I think it's a little bit tougher in Tears of the Kingdom, but it definitely can be played in that way as well. So I think there's just a ton of them.
Yeah, and this is where indies, I think, also really do capture that essence as well, with the rise of roguelikes and games that are meant to, like, pooping games, right? Like, I mean, I love my pooping games. Like, I love little puzzle games, like stuff that you can play for like literally like 5 minutes and bring on the John. Like that is such a great thing to have, and it's something that, like, whenever I see a game like that on Steam, I get excited. It's like, oh great, I can poop and play my Steam Deck now. You know, it's like, because I feel like so many sorry, I'm talking too much about poop, but you guys get the idea. It's like you know, I feel like Steam stuff isn't necessarily like that yet, or like a lot of the AAA stuff. Like if the other companies are going to start doing that, I wonder if we'll start to see a trend towards more pick up and play experiences. Because, you know, right now on Sony, it's like, if you're going to sit down and play Spider-Man, it's not really meant for you to play in like 5-6 minute increments. You know, like they want you to like do a long ass mission and then move on to the next thing, right? So
yeah, well,
anyway, it'd be interesting to see if that changes.
Can I ask a quick question? Like, was the PlayStation Vita like that? What were the games that they put? I did not have one. I saw my nephew play one, but that's about the extent of my experience with it. Did the games have that sort of vibe that were big on it? I know it wasn't overall.
Okay, so I've really only played. So I never had a Vita as like when they first came out, which I regret wholeheartedly now, even though the output on that console was slow. But I recently bought one like about 2 years ago out of a flea market, which is cool. And I've only played 2 games to completion on it. Killzone Mercenary, I think is what it's called, and what's it called? Uncharted Golden Abyss, which they were kind of like optimized to be on handhelds, but they also kind of weren't. It's interesting. Golden Abyss If you just blew that game up on a console and you just like made it look prettier, it would just be another Uncharted game. Interestingly enough, there might be like a few less cutscenes or like as the other Uncharted games, but other than that, it felt like an Uncharted game. But there was also this annoying crap with that Uncharted card game they kept putting in there, like, oh, you beat this level, here's a big old notification on the top right of the screen saying you got this in the Uncharted card game, and I'm just like, can I mute these, please, for the love of God? Killzone Mercenary was also kind of like the same way, but I guess the missions weren't as long, but they were still like not short either. Same with Uncharted. For some reason, every 5 minutes I entered a new chapter in that game. I don't understand why they made the chapters so tiny, and it didn't even feel like they were finished chapters. It's bizarre, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question you ask, Patrick, because I think that might be some of the Vita's undoing here in the West anyway. I mean, the Vita did really well in Japan and did well for a really long time in Japan, right? But they had so many games that never made it over here. I feel like the marketing for the Vita in America was it's a console experience, right? And they were trying to make big games. They were trying to make it to where it's like, you know, this is what you can look at what this fucking thing could do, man, you know? And so it was like, you know, so I think that what did have games that were shorter and more bite size and for the form factor was the PSP. Right. Yeah. You know, look at like the versions of Metal Gear Solid that are on there. Like they're now mission based instead of a big open world where you can go between different places and whatever. And it's continuous. Right. A lot of stuff on the PSP was like that. I'm thinking of a lot of the Star Wars games that were on there too. Right. These are just off the top of my head. But it's like I think Nintendo always had it down, which is why, you know, even now that they've combined their handheld and console pillars, we're still seeing a lot of that same, you know, development strategy, and the way that they're putting that effort into those games still holds over, even though you can also play them on the TV. And I think honestly, it's good to design your games in that way because, you know, because I could play Game Boy games on the TV and still enjoy them, you know, but you know, cramming something into a really small factor when I'm on the train or something isn't necessarily the best idea.
You know what's bizarre? I learned this recently. Do you know how many 3DS ports are on Switch?
Not that many, right?
Few.
2. And that one of them's not even out yet. One of them, I'm just like, really? I could have sworn they would have ported more. I could maybe be a little wrong about that. There might have been multi-platform releases. Like, I don't know, Hyrule Warriors got a 3DS port, but that's not a 3DS game. So yeah. So I'm just thinking it's crazy how like it's not. They didn't just do that easy money. Nintendo easy money.
Yeah. Where's my Tomodachi Life port, man? Come on.
You're telling me me we got Miitopia on the Switch, but not Tomodachi Life. Give me a break.
The very popular Miitopia game that everyone definitely bought on the 3DS and would double dip on the Switch came out. Yes, very popular.
I'm happy for any me representation on Switch.
The me's you can make in that game are just nightmare fuel. I love it.
Well, I think that sort of ties into something that I have felt, which I don't know that everybody agrees with, but like I think there's a perception historically of handhelds kind of being for kids, you know, and I think the Switch changed that. They did a good job of marketing, you know, ads where dads are playing by a crib and things. I mean, that was fucking me. So it's true and it worked. And I think now we're kind of seeing the result of that, right? Like, I know I got a Steam Deck and I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like because of the Switch, right? Like I was like, oh, now I could play even more games handheld. So I think that's changed and I don't know that will go back. I mean, especially as gamers age up and stuff like that, right? But that might be part of it, this renaissance too.
Yeah. I think gamers aging up is the right one there. You know, I think that's why we see the kind of rise of handheld emulators that has been so prevalent over the last like 5 years. These like cheap Chinese devices, that you buy from these companies you've never heard of that seem to only exist to sell these emulators, right?
Yes.
And they put out new ones like every 3 months or whatever, right? But there's a shit ton of them and they're getting better every single day. And I think that's capturing the 20, 30, 40 something year olds like that have nostalgia for these old consoles that want to just be able to play these old games whenever they want, right? And with ease and while traveling and while caring for a kid or whatever, like you said, Patrick. I think that's a really good point. But I mean, that said though, I mean, kids still fucking love Nintendo Switch. You know?
They do.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why they came out with a Switch Lite. Also,
totally.
like the Switch Lite is totally like more kid centric, and I just wish they came out with a Switch Micro. If that makes sense. You're telling like we're talking like this size, baby. Like that's cool. I could actually fit in my pocket. That'd be cool.
Well, a couple other questions I have. There's been a lot of rumors about Microsoft and Sony developing handhelds beyond the Portal. Kind of we talked about Microsoft a little bit with you pointing out that all these devices are being made that use Windows. Do you think that's realistic? Do we think there's a lot of smoke there? Do we think there's fire? Do we think how could they compete with Switch and Steam Deck, or is it the fact that this is blowing up and now is the time, or do you think that will? I don't know. I'd be curious what y'all think if it's gonna happen, if it would be successful. That sort of thing.
You're asking specifically about Sony and Microsoft?
Sony and Microsoft, yeah. Do you think it's true that they are doing this? I'm sure they've got R&D, but like...
I feel like Sony is always a little too late to the game, so they're probably working on it now, but it won't come out for like 3 years and no one will give a shit anymore because they put all their eggs in the PSVR 2 basket that nobody bought, and now that they're buying the Portal, they're like, shit! We put our eggs in the wrong basket.
It's so funny that the PS Portal is selling like as good as it is. I really thought that thing was gonna flop, and then I remembered some people don't read the boxes, and they're gonna buy this thing thinking I can just put my PS5 disc in here. There you go. Oh man, I gotta think like a lot of people accidentally bought that thing not knowing what it was, but I could be wrong there. Like I've heard it is a good device legitimately. I would have probably bought one, but the thing is like my PS5 is not hardwired to my internet because for some reason my internet can only be hooked up like in a completely separate room that I'd have no desire to put my PlayStation in. But yeah, it's I think the PS5, what is it called again? I forgot. The Portal?
The Portal. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like the Portal is a sign like they're gonna figure out how to do that. And then but I also wonder how that's gonna, because you gotta think they'd want to make it like not cloud-based at a certain point, and they'd want to make it like a dedicated thing. And I'm just like, how would you make that work? Are you saying developers are gonna have to worry about developing for the PS5, the PS5 Pro, and the PS5 handheld? That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, what do you think about that, Jordan? Do you think it's like something where they would have their own bespoke teams for it, or would it just be like a little mini PS5? What do you think?
I feel like, it comes later in the life cycle, right before a PS6 is about to come out. They release like a PS5 portable that can run PS5 shit, so you don't have to spend a bunch of extra development teams just to make these portable versions. But again, I feel like if they're working on it, it's like, it's not coming anytime soon. However, I do think Microsoft would be a little bit quicker. I think they have more of the R&D already done for a portable Windows machine, whether that's a gaming machine or a tablet of some sort. I think they've already done that technology development. So for them to pivot to make a game machine versus a like workstation or a laptop, like it's negligible. So I think if anyone's going to do it first, it's probably going to be Microsoft. But do they want to? I think they would want a Game Pass machine, basically, like a literal Game Pass machine. That's all that it runs is Game Pass. I could see that something along those lines. But yeah,
it's weird. I can kind of see them doing like a streaming thing again before, and I just really wish for everyone to stop doing this, right? And focus on be okay with lower spec, right?
Right.
Take the right lessons from the Switch here, not the wrong lessons from the Switch here, right? The wrong lesson from the Switch is like, well, the Switch has control streaming on it, so let's make our own thing and do that. You know what I mean? It's like, no, dog. Like that's not like nobody fucking bought. I mean, maybe some people bought the Kingdom Hearts streaming thing on Switch, but like, I don't know anybody who fucking did, right? But the takeaway here is that like people prefer the immediacy and the what's the word I'm looking for? The ease of
the convenience.
Yeah, thank you. The convenience of a handheld and having to be tethered to your thing, having to constantly be worrying about an internet connection, having not being able to take it with you on the go and play offline. Like these are things that people. I mean, obviously, enough people are okay with it with the Portal where it's okay, but I'm just worried that they're going to take the wrong lessons from the Portal doing okay and double down on that. But I do think Microsoft is going to be first to market on this because, you know, again, it's like all their shit, like all Microsoft games end up on PC, right? PlayStation's kind of working their way towards that, right? So I think that it's a lot easier for you know, Xbox right away to be like, oh, okay, well, people are playing our games on lower spec. They just lower the settings, right?
Part of the problem is that Microsoft and Sony are locked into this war of better and better technology and better graphics, bigger and bigger games, right? And that doesn't fit as well into handheld.
And overall, we just need to stop with that.
Yeah.
Give graphics a break for 10, 20 years.
We got enough polygons.
Your games are taking too long to make. Stop it. My grandkids will be able to play Fallout 5 when it comes out. That's how long game development is. Stop it.
Probably.
Anyway, there's my mini rant for the day. Anyway, continue handheld games.
No, you're good. Yeah, we can do more of those. But yeah, so do you have something else, Patrick?
No, it's just that basically like I mean, with some notable exceptions like Astro's Playroom or something, you know what I mean? Like shorter experiences and like lesser tech things. That's not what I don't think that's what their audience wants either to some extent, right? Or at least and so that's why this works really well for Nintendo. And I think, you know, again, this kind of gets back into will these, you know, super powerful handhelds that play AAA games be the future, or is it more, you know, handheld designed games and that sort of thing?
I think we are trending towards a couple things tech-wise that are going to make this a lot more possible, right? First of all, something like Unreal Engine 5 being pretty scalable is a step in the right direction, right? Mm-hmm. Having game engines be able to scale things back, port easily, you know, stuff like that. Again, this is something that I think the Switch has helped with. I think Unreal Engine 4 is something that's really easy to port to Switch, so much so that Nintendo started using it for some of their first party games, including Pikmin 4, I believe, was made in Unreal Engine 4. Yes. Right? So, you know, I think that's a really good step in the right direction. What was something else I was going to say? I think that DLSS rendering technology, especially if the Switch 2, Switch Pro, Super Switch comes out and it's using that tech, everyone's going to want to fucking get on that shit right away. Right? You know, I think that Steam Deck itself almost feels a little throttled because it doesn't have that NVIDIA tech on it. It's got AMD like FSR, but it's not even like the higher range stuff that really allows for better computation. So I feel like next Steam Deck is going to have that, and it's going to make even more games more compatible, right? But it's also like this is an opportunity, I think, for these companies to make smaller experiences, you know, and to not have to just make huge ass AAA games, make smaller games with smaller teams, more experimental. You know, if you know, I think another thing here, and sorry, I'm rambling, but it's like I think another thing that is another reason that these companies would probably want to make handhelds is because they're trying to get away from discs. You know, these companies are trying to go towards an all digital future, and you know, Steam Deck. And to a lesser extent, Switch, because obviously that still uses cartridges, but Steam Deck is entirely digital and it's super, super fucking convenient, right? And it makes sense. And if, you know, Microsoft is going towards subscription and PlayStation's putting all their shit on Steam, like we're obviously moving in that direction. I think that's going to be beneficial for them. And that's what they want anyway, is to have their own storefronts where people buy from them, right?
Totally. I am full agreement with you all the way. The more you talk about it, the more kind of excited I get by like what the future of this handheld gaming stuff is. Even though I just said like I do kind of miss like the games designed with handheld in mind sort of deal. Just like being able to play those big AAA experiences on the go, but like have them be smoother at the same time is something quite titillating to me, I should say. But I never bought a Steam Deck though. I might have just have to wait for the Steam Deck too.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe that's a great point. Should we talk about the future and like any speculation about what this, we've already kind of covered it, but what does all this mean? Do we think this will all blow up? Do we think this will, continue? Is it going to stick around now with gamers aging up and people wanting?
I feel like it has to, especially because the success of the Switch cannot be ignored. What'll be interesting to see is how well the Switch 2 does, or whatever it's going to be called. Because you're going to see a lot of people think just a more powerful Switch is like a guarantee to success, right? But you got to think, out of the how many hundreds of millions of people that own a Switch 1, do you really think all of them are just going to upgrade to the Switch 2 right away? Most likely not. Definitely not. 100% not. Most of them like aren't even like dedicated Nintendo fanboys like me. They're just people who picked up a Switch to play Animal Crossing probably, and that's all they still play is Animal Crossing if they still play it. So Nintendo has a big challenge if the next Switch is only going to be a more powerful Switch, if it's even going to call a Switch, which it has to, because come on. They have a big challenge to like try to convince those people, hey, you need the better Switch. But then you'll have those people saying, my current Switch plays Animal Crossing just fine. Why should I get a Switch 2? And then we'll see how that market sort of responds to that. If it turns out the Switch 2 doesn't do as well.
Yeah, that's interesting to point out too, because I mean, you're also coming off the Wii U, which did not sell very well. So people were totally willing to skip a generation. Then once they saw the Switch hit, they were like, oh shit, no, this is something I'll pick up. So you got the gamers, and then you got the casual market after that. But to answer your question, Animal Crossing Newer Horizons for the Super Switch coming out. That's what's going to sell this Super Switch. Anyway, for the future, I mean, it's like, yeah, dude, nerds got money and nerds got kids now. So those two things alone, I think, are just going to like keep pushing this handheld future, because as kids are growing up now, especially with just mobile phones in general, they're used to having something portable in their hand and ready to go at all times, especially tablets and iPads and things like that. So they're going to want that experience as well, because they're going to have nostalgia for just having something on the go, whether it's a Switch or an iPad or an iPhone or any of those combinations. So I think this is just a trend that will continue into the future for sure.
Yeah. Honestly, guys, Switch feels to me like something like the D-pad. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I just can't see a Nintendo system not being a hybrid going forward, right? And it just makes too much sense. And it makes it to where not every kind of game that you want to make can be both handheld and home console, right? So tech needs to catch up a little bit, I think. But I don't think we're that far off. And I mean, look at the current state of PC handhelds. Like, there's so many right now. We were even talking before, Jordan, you're like, man, there are way more than I thought there were. And there are way more people that have, their hand in putting this hardware out, right? You've got the Asus ROG Ally, excuse me, Steam Deck, Lenovo Legion Go, the Ioneo has a whole lot of devices. They put out a new device like every 2 months, right? Then the newest ones that they've got is the Ioneo Flip, right? Which is a dual screen handheld device. So we were actually, some of us were talking about it in the Discord this past week, but that's a really cool device, right? Problem is, a lot of these companies that aren't Valve are pushing these things out at like $800-900. Because they're fucking expensive to make, and they're not huge companies that can take a loss or have a built-in ecosystem where every game purchase offsets the cost of the device that you just bought, right? So it's like, we basically have a couple hurdles to get through in order to get that down. Some of that's the tech we were talking about before, but I think once we get battery tech where it needs to be, once we get the processing where it needs to be, and we can get that price down a little bit, I can really see all of the big players in the industry right now going for this model going forward. And I think also, when in terms of, you were talking about the Super Switch and like what that is going to take in order to get people on. I think it's software and its experiences, right? I think that, it can't just be, it's the Switch, but it's 4K now, right? You need some like really interesting shit. Now, I don't want that to mean Nintendo adds another screen onto this thing or adds some gimmick that makes it untenable to play any of those games on any future system. They've definitely been known to do that, but I don't think that that's their forte right now. I think their forte is like spending a lot of time and a lot of resources on making really good and polished experiences, something that's going to appeal to a large degree of people, but doesn't alienate their current player base, right? So I think as long as they can do that, and then these other companies start taking cues from that as well, I think that the future of handheld gaming could be pretty bright.
Well, sure. I think we should wrap up this discussion. Anything else anybody wants to make sure we talk about in terms of current state of or future of handhelds?
Yeah, I know this isn't a good idea, but I would like to see more games built specifically for a handheld.
Me too.
Right? Like, it's crazy that the Switch has a huge touch screen on it that can take up to 10 inputs at once, simultaneous, and it responds really well and it plays really well with games, and barely any games use it.
There is a game called Severed that does that, from the people who make Guacamelee. That's that's one I enjoyed. I didn't beat it, but I enjoyed it.
That was a 3DS game.
Yeah.
It started as a PS Vita game, I think.
What?
Too. Yes.
Well, the Vita had a fucking touchpad on the back of the goddamn thing. The Vita had so many inputs. Oh my god! Let's actually just gush on the Vita real quick. The Vita had amazing graphics. Yeah, pull it up, Joey. I know you got it.
I just realized I had it behind me this whole time. It's the 2000. It's like the later model, so it doesn't have an OLED screen. But yeah,
all good. The Vita had such incredible stuff, but I think that's maybe another thing that brought it down a little bit, was all the weird, funky input controls and stuff that you can't really replicate going forward. Anyway, all right, let's stop gushing on the Vita. We don't really have time. But it's like, but anyway, I forgot what the fucking point I was trying to make.
You want more handheld games to be made.
Yes, because I think there are a lot, but most of them end up being like mobile ports that are brought over to the Switch, right? That end up using the touchscreen. But it's like there are so many conveniences to do that, and I think that it's okay, especially if there isn't a dedicated handheld for Nintendo. Like if there's just one pillar going forward, I think it's okay to make games that are just handheld focused, and maybe even like extensively use that touchscreen, right? And if you can't play it on the TV, well, just take it off, and play it handheld and make your game bespoke for that. Because I think that there is something to that idea of game design that really has its charm. And I think a lot of people would really latch onto.
Yeah, I think there's a fear Nintendo has of maybe making a game for just one or the other. But I do think that, because of lights, right? Like not everybody can dock their light, but everybody can play in handheld. So I think, that why not?
And it hasn't stopped them from making games that are just not compatible with the Switch Lite either. Like they do kind of both.
The Joy-Con,
Maybe the
Joy-Cons to play this.
Maybe the numbers are just really low and they're woke to something that I am not aware of. But it's like, I don't know. It's an interesting future, but yeah, I can't wait. As a big handheld fan, I collect all of them. I collect handheld emulators. I collect little one-off. I've got the fucking chicken nugget from Chinese McDonald's that plays Tetris. I love them, dude. And I think a lot of people do too. And I don't think it's a niche thing anymore. I think it's really coming back. I can't wait to see it flourish.
All right. Well, that does it for our discussion on the current state of handhelds. If you're out there listening or watching and you've got any thoughts about what's going on with the handheld gaming right now or in the future, definitely drop us a line and we'll try to shout you out next time. And with that, we're going to take another short break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the games we've been playing recently. I obviously played a lot of Splatoon with the Splatfest. Sorry, I'm a big Splatoon fan, but I won't talk about that because I talk about it all the time. So,
oh no, please! I didn't put a video on mine because I thought you would talk about it.
I didn't put it on mine because I thought you would. So there will be no Splatoon footage. Okay, yeah, I played mostly by myself. I played a few tricolor battles with my kid, and I played one match at the very end with AVK. Shout out to AVK. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I like the music this time around a lot because they had a little music variation, and that kind of got stuck in my head. I really liked it. And
all the Spring Fest stuff was actually really cool. I think I love Splatoon so much. Like, I love that they put so much work into these little one-off events. I don't know. It's just the dedication and like the amount that they put into the art design is just incredible. I don't know. I love it.
Yeah, and the idols had like crazy coloring that matched the Spring Fest stuff. So yeah, it was fun. We're recording this on Sunday, so I don't know what the result was. It should be out.
Yeah,
now.
I'm trying to look it up.
Yeah, look it up. I actually saw my Nintendo post the results. I got it on my phone.
Yeah, we're all learning right now.
Nintendo everything. Oh, here's the results. Let me go. Can I get a drum roll, please? Hold on. Team Bear Cubs.
All right.
Hey, that's us. Yeah, that was our Discord's pick. Yes. Very happy to hear that. I'm looking forward to the GameXplain video showing this off as well.
Oh, let me check if it's up. It's up 6 minutes ago.
There we go.
The other thing I thought I might just mention, I've talked about this once before, but the other big thing that we've been playing over here is Gimkit, and this is a educational game that my kid picked up at school. But man, if you got a kid in the 8 to 10-ish range, give or take, and they're interested in game design and game development, Gimkit's a pretty good thing. It's hard for me to know for sure because my kid has some experience from me and from Game Builder Garage and all that, but he's kind of gone to town on Gimkit and you can make your own different kinds of games on there, but made a little farming sim type thing that he and I have been playing a lot, and I've been helping him bug test and stuff. So it's a kid's educational toy thing, but I've got to shout out to Gimkit because I've actually spent a lot of time this past week on it.
Yeah, sounds cool.
I literally have just been playing the same two things. It's just been very busy with the wrap of the season and then having, different various events to attend. But yeah, so I'm still on the Balatro train. I have now officially beat the game with every standard deck on the base difficulty level.
Wow.
So now I need to decide if I really want to take the step into the one step up, because I think there's maybe 5 or 6 ranks of difficulty. So now I got to decide if I want to go up or not. I kind of am leaning towards waiting till some patches come through, especially now that I know the Slay the Spire 2 public or beta test or whatever is coming in somewhat soon, and I am hopelessly addicted to Slay the Spire, so I think I might switch over to that when that comes out. But yeah, anyway, so I hit that milestone pretty good. Then the other game, same, just working my way through Paper Mario. I am now the furthest I've ever been in Paper Mario, so I'm stoked and I'm really enjoying it, and I feel like this is the time I'm going to push through and make it. If anyone's curious, I'm about to go to the Shy Guy area. So if you're a Paper Mario head and you know where that is in the game,
I do.
That's where I'm at. Yeah,
very good.
I haven't beaten it, but I must be close then. You know what I mean? With my playthrough of it.
Yeah, I got some crossover with you guys. I also played the Splatfest. I didn't play a bunch, but I played last night. Played until 3:30 in the morning. It was nice. Pretty late. Me and AVK were playing for a while, but that was fun. Fucking tricolor battles on Mahi Mahi, hard. That was difficult. I also have been playing a little bit of Balatro. I need to pick your brain a little bit, Jordan, about some of your strats, because I've won one game of Balatro, and that's all I played. I have not played as much as you. I fell off and I started playing some other stuff, but I picked it back up, and I was like, man, I got to the very last blind, and then and lost on my last run. So that was a bummer. But it was like a 300,000 point blind or something. So it was just like really hard.
Oh, but, the wall is so insane. I think that's the extra large blind.
Yeah, I should have re-rolled it. Yeah.
That boss in particular fucks a run. Yeah.
It was really hard. But anyway, like I said a little bit, I've been playing some Pokemon Heart Gold as well on my phone. But I did pick up Stitch, which was the David-coded game from the indie world. I'm a huge Picross fan. And so I heard people saying it was really good, and it's very good. It's not like Picross. It is very different. In fact, it's more similar to a game which I'm sure there's another word for this game, but there's one called Philipix on the Switch, and I've played a demo for that, and it's basically this, but they have it's more like done like it's a cross-stitching sort of thing, right? It's a little hard to explain, but this is a game that I actually like to play with the Joy-Cons off of my system, just holding it like a tablet and playing with my finger or with a stylus. Because when you're moving this stick around, you're just moving a cursor anyway. So this is one that I think was originally an Apple Arcade exclusive. This would have played really great on phones. So it makes sense that it's more fun to play just touchscreen, but it's actually really addicting and very fun and very calming, and can get pretty tough as well. So if anybody out there is interested in Stitch, I would recommend it. It's like maybe a little expensive, but it's got a lot of polish and it looks really great.
I can't wait for the sequel, Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, exactly. I did try to Google a video for this for a while, and it just came up with Lilo and Stitch stuff for a really long time.
Of course it did. Of course it did.
You gotta search Stitch game, but
I did that, and I still got Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, the Game Boy Advance Lilo and Stitch game. Yeah. That's hilarious. And then a couple other things I've been playing real quick. I'll say Maximum Velocity F-Zero. I did turn that on and play a little bit of it. Just to remind myself that this is probably my least favorite F-Zero game, but it is an F-Zero game regardless, and god damn it, I'm going to put time into it so Nintendo sees that people are playing things that have F-Zero in the title in their play data. So where's that game? God damn it, I want more. And then lastly, I'll say I've been kind of going through, and I don't think I ever 100%ed Tropical Freeze, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze.
You didn't?
And yeah, I mean, I've beaten the game multiple times. I've probably played through this game like 3 times. I just never like got all the puzzle pieces. Right. I've unlocked all the levels, I think. But so I was going through that, and I'm basically just like all like the little nagging puzzle pieces that I could never find. I've just been buying the bird and giving me some hints as to where those are, and leaving my shame at the door, and just being like, I'm a busy man with a busy life, and I would just want to get these puzzle pieces without having to play the level 5 times and try to find it every time, right? So I've been doing that, and I think I'm going to go through and 100% it. Although I don't know if 100% includes getting gold on all the time trials, because if it does, I can kiss that goodbye, because the time trials are hard. I spent probably like a half hour trying to get the gold just on like level 1, 2, and I was like, God damn. And I finally got it. And then I tried another level, and I was like, I don't know if I've got this grind in me, guys. I don't know if I got that dog in me to go through all the golds on this, but it's fascinating that they included it, and maybe someday I'll go back to it, but God damn, Tropical Freeze is such a good game.
It is.
And,
we just had a 10th anniversary discussion on that game at GameXplain. So
cool.
If you want more Tropical Freeze like discussions, you should definitely check it out. That game is like 2D platforming perfection.
Yes.
Seriously.
It's crazy that it is like 10 years old now, isn't it?
Yeah, it came out February 2014, and it is now 2024. So
Jesus.
Yep. I also 100%ed that and got all the puzzle pieces and stuff. So I don't think that you have to do the time trials, but then it does open up the 200%, which is the hard mode, and that's where I noped out.
Whoa! All right, let's go, baby. I'm playing this game for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But that's been me. What about you, Joey? What have you been playing recently?
So I played Another Crab's Treasure, which is the Crab Souls-like, which I cannot talk about because the review embargo has not lifted yet.
Okay.
But I will say the review will be out soon. So stay tuned for that. But after I beat that, I decided the Fallout show got me way too hyped. And so it's time to finally play Fallout New Vegas, which I have played before, long time ago, like right when it came out. I don't remember how many hours I put into it, but I didn't remember like anything of it. So I've been playing it on my Xbox with, that sweet Series X FPS boost. Yep, still glitchy. So a part of me is just like, maybe I should have played this on PC with mods. But either way, it's still a really good game. It's fantastic. And then when I'm done with the main quest, I'm choosing the side of the NCR for this one because I did think about doing like the independent solo sort of thing, but I realized my character, which is pretty much just me, I always insert myself in RPGs, don't ask me why, is that my character would not do this. My character wouldn't want to be a freaking leader, no. So I'm just like, okay, NCR, I know you guys are kind of shitty in your own special. All these factions are shitty in their own special, unique ways, except fuck the Legion, not joining them ever. Are you serious? So I'm just like, all right, I'll just do an NCR run this time. And so when I'm done with that, I'm going to jump into Fallout 4, which I played a lot of when it came out, but I have never beaten like the main quest or anything. So I'm going to go do that, but on PC this time because, maybe mods, maybe not, who knows?
It is amazing to see how many people are playing Fallout after that show came out. It really worked. And it's like, yo, this is a good indication. Make good video game adaptations that are faithful to the source material. Like, because non-gamers, the people who have never played it will be like, they catch on when it's faithful and when it's good, and when the people that are fans are like, yo, this is a great adaptation, they hear that and that makes them want to go and play the games, right? So
yes,
this is a really good example going forward on how to do a good video game adaptation and use it. Todd Howard's like, why didn't we make a new game to go along with this? Yeah,
tie these things in is the thing I'm always feeling like when movies and shows drop and there's not a new entry. Like, I understand that that's really hard to align two production schedules, but like, at least make the games available like that, or whatever.
It is a darn shame, right? Because Fallout 5 is not going to be out until the PlayStation 7's out. So like, that's a real bummer. But there was like that Xbox like email leak, I guess, like a few months ago, saying like Fallout 3 remaster or something is in the works. So that would
be smart.
Yeah, I'm just like, so okay, so release that this year. I hope it's a good remaster. Let's hope. But yeah, like I'm gonna be so pissed off though if like come like E3, Summer Game Fest, whatever time, and then they're just like, hey, here you go, guys, Fallout 5 title drop. See ya in 2037. Just gonna be like, you Elder Scrolls Oblivion, not Oblivion, you Elder Scrolls 6'd it. You Elder Scrolls 6'd it. God damn it, Todd. I don't think that's going to happen because they straight up said, yeah, Fallout 5 after Elder Scrolls 6.
After Elder Scrolls 6, yeah.
So it's going to be a really fucking long time. God damn it.
There are currently 100,000 concurrent players, 106,000 concurrent players on Steam playing Fallout 4 right now.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, this game is old.
Yeah, it's 9 years old. For one, that's just not okay. This game came out yesterday in my mind.
Yeah.
All right, friends, I think that's it then for our episode on handhelds. Thank you so much, Joey, for coming on and joining us. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you to MilkyWay.co, who does our website. Thank you to Corduroy, who does our music. Thanks to all our patrons over on Patreon. And if you're looking for me, Patrick, you can find me online as PDYX.
You can find me on the internet at Bordan.
I'm pretty much ever on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, Joey? Where can people find you online?
You can find me on the YouTube channel GameXplain, but on all socials, you can find me at Ferris Wheel Pro.
Ferris Wheel Pro. That's a good follow over there on Twitter. Make sure you get over there. and follow that guy. Really great having you on again, Joey. Such a wonderful time. We'd love to have you on again sometime if you're down. That was a really wonderful discussion.
Me up.
Will do. You got it. If you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Twitter, at Super Switch Headz on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We got our website, switchheads.com, and then we have our Patreon, our Discord, and our Facebook group. We'll have links to all three of those in the description of this episode, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple, any of these places. Make sure you go over there and shoot us a subscribe or a follow on any of those. And we'd love to see you guys on the Discord. What a wonderful community we have. The least toxic gamer fan base in all of the internet. That's how I view it anyway. About as toxic as we get in there is bad-mouthing Red Lobster. I think that's about as toxic as it gets in our Discord. And you know what? That is pretty fucking toxic. Anyway. Because I am a fan. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. I don't know why I just said it. We're going to be back next week with another banger, so you know the drill, gang. Don't touch that dial. Stay safe out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. Let's all go play Fallout 4 on the Asus ROG Ally. But until next time, we love you very much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.